go. Welcome into the CHGO White Sox Podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app today and use promo code CHGO when you sign up. Welcome into Studio A of our CHGO offices here in the West Loop of Chicago. A busy traffic day here in Chicago. Sorry, chat, that we're here at 4:05 and not 4 p.m. We didn't wait an hour. It was only 5 minutes. That's Vinnie Duber. You can follow him on Twitter at Vinnie Duber. He's our CHGO White Sox beat writer. And I'm Sean Anderson, the host of the CHGO White Sox Podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Sean_W_Anderson. And that's not Herb Lawrence. That's James Fegan.
It's not.
You can follow James on Twitter at JR Fegan. He is the Chicago White Sox beat writer for The Athletic.
I'm responsible for it being late today.
Yeah, it's okay.
I didn't know where it was. I was walking the wrong direction.
It's not on an actual street.
You're not unlike many Uber Eats drivers or DoorDash people.
I think like a group of teens kind of roasted me because it looked like because I dashed one way and then the other, it looked like I was running away from them instead of like crossing by them in the street.
Trying to avoid the youths.
Because I just ran onto the street and then I turned around and ran the other direction. It just looked like I panicked at the sight of Chicago youths.
Yeah, I mean, we can tell you this from having to do a show with Sean every day. You don't want to deal with Gen Z.
Not that bad.
I call them youths. They're probably like 27 years old.
Exactly. Yeah.
But you're here, and you made it, and you escaped that gang of youths, and you don't have to
those people leaving work.
Yeah.
Yes, those people leaving work.
If you're ever in West Loop, James, you just see people doing this, just run.
The biggest issue I find is just dog feces, There's not a lot
of that.
Yeah,
in this
not a lot of
neighborhood,
cleanup going around. I mean, you talked about my civic duty and drinking Malort. I think people should be doing that. Yeah. Oh, you should watch out, especially with those nice sneakers. You gotta watch out on these streets. Do your civic duty. Pick up your dogs.
Yeah,
Anyways,
seriously. There's nothing worse.
No, there is nothing worse.
Yeah.
I deal with neighbors who don't pick up their dog crap, and it doesn't make any sense.
We're here talking local political issues.
Yeah, exactly.
Shovel
your sidewalks while you're at it.
Call your alderman.
We're gonna break some ice while you're shoveling. We're gonna ask James little questions. We haven't had a guest on in a bit. I can't remember.
Certainly not while I've been here. I'm sure when I was gone, you had tons of guests.
Because you're recently back from Australia.
Yeah, just back. Just got off the plane.
Just
today.
off the plane. Thankfully, Southwest doesn't fly to Australia.
Yeah,
now
really.
we'll bring in some global politics. But James, we got some quick questions for you.
What's the deal with travel, man?
We got some quick questions for you. First off, what was the player stance that you imitated the most when you were a kid? Growing up.
When you were a youth, that people avoided on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Jeez, I'm going to slam this down. Probably Frank into doing the little crap.
Careful.
Doing the little thing he would do, bringing his bat out. Ventura was more like this deep crouch. There wasn't a ton of frills to it. But, Frank would seem like he was kind of waving the bat at the pitcher a little bit. When they signed Tomei, you'd do the point a little bit.
Sure.
But, I also saw that being the harbinger of doom for 10 years
Yeah,
in
right.
Cleveland, so I didn't embrace it super hard. But Frank Thomas.
Yeah.
I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here.
Frank Thomas was the first player you brought up today, too, when you asked if we had any big hurt beer in the fridge. So
my sister still has one.
Wow.
We bought a case of 30. Mistake. But they're very potent. But he signed one, and we haven't drank that one.
Sure, yeah.
When was that?
I thought
released?
you kept it like my roommate has a box of Rizzos still.
Oh.
Not my current roommate, that would be my wife, but my former roommate still has a box of Rizzos from a few years ago.
I have my box of Wheaties with Burley on the cover from the 2005 World Series.
Sure. That's what I thought he was.
I want to say it was 2010, 2011 is around that time.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I recently drank beer from that time when we started this company. What was that, 2014
oh my God,
beer?
that was the weirdest beer, yeah.
It's probably still drinkable if you want to drink a big hurt beer. Okay. All right. So we'll put Frank Thomas down for player stance you imitated the most. And this is from inspired by Sleepy Harold, who is in the chat right there. Scoops Fegan in the house. I know you didn't want to look at the chat, but Sleepy Harold wanted to know what's the most obscure current White Sox prospect that you can name?
Well, even just being mentioned there, James Fox brought up some dude I didn't even hear of. I looked up on Baseball Reference.
I got the name here.
Texted some scouts about it just because I was
wow.
curious.
There, see, there you go. He's
Arnold
prepared.
Prado. He's really tall, and he crushed the ball in the DSL, and he's 18 years old.
O'Neal Cruz tall or?
No, he's like 6'3".
Oh, okay, all right.
So he's Vinnie tall.
He's the right level of tall for a corner outfielder.
Oh, corner outfield. Okay, I wasn't knowing like Jose Rodriguez. I thought was 6'3" for a bit. He's only like 5'10".
They just signed a guy who's 5'9" to play left field for 5 years. I'm contrasting it to that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that guy in a bit. I'm not too happy about that. And then who's the most obscure White Sox prospect who never made it to the big leagues that you could probably name?
Isn't that just a ton of them? Isn't that all? Like
That's pretty much all of them. I mean, there's a
the
big
question
pool.
really should have been, who's the most obscure White Sox prospect you asked Rick Hahn about?
Yeah, that is a good
because there was a while during those rebuilding years where Rick would be giving out injury updates on prospects. And
that always got he made that into a big Merck was the one who asked about Victor Diaz over and over again.
And that somehow got
sale trade.
It somehow got put on you.
Put on me a lot.
Victor Diaz, I'll take.
So when they drafted Cade McClure out of Louisville, he dominated low A for a bit. And so when he twisted his knee, he got his knee injured. I remember asking about it in a press conference, and everyone looked at me like, "Who's Cade McClure?" And now they just traded him to the Giants.
Little did they know, the guy who got them Gregory Santos.
Yeah, little did they know,
who got the guy.
Years later, he'd be dominating AAA out of the bullpen and then get traded. So yeah, I was putting in my homework.
Good job. And then this one's probably easy. What's the best White Sox uniform of all time? You don't have to really re-rack the brain too hard to pull up an Arnold Prado or anything.
I think when they're traveling in the all grays, they look like a joyless brand of mercenaries, but in a good way. Mm-hmm. So when they're playing well and they're methodically taking across the opposition, it's just like the Empire winning. It's just these guys dressed in gray and they're just kind of dashing around doing what they want, and everyone's unhappy and shrugging. When they're doing their thing on the road and they're playing well, they look cool.
It reminds you of an Imperial board meeting in what's going on the third level of the Death Star.
It reminds me of the actual baseball movie where they wear the road grays.
So you like the current all
it'd
grays.
be like a scene in a Star Wars movie 45 minutes in where it's just the Empire just wrecking a hopeless planet.
Right.
And it's oh, we got to avenge them. But and they look, you kind of have to lean back this is an atrocity.
Sure.
But they look good doing it.
Wow. James Fegan appreciates the bad guys in Star Wars.
I mean, if you're going to appreciate the franchise, why not appreciate every part? You know? They had no accuracy, but they were looking good while doing it.
The little, cursive C hat, that was, the thing when 90s. I was, 3 years old.
The Frank Thomas debut?
Yeah. I don't think the full uniform is, put it over everything, but I think the hat, I wish they would bring that back.
Sure.
Given how much we see the 1983 jersey, I would love to see those mixed in a bit.
Sure.
I think they have their place. They're the same.
A lot of people would like those too, yeah.
The players don't like the huge sewed-on patch of the 83 jersey, I've heard at times, and this is maybe a little bit smaller.
Their pullover's not buttoned down, so I'm sure that throws them off their whole thing.
Yes.
Does that make that much of a difference? I mean, because you're talking
about
the
they only won 81 games.
The road grays, wouldn't they have the same length of a logo across?
Yes,
and
but
Southside
it's the
too.
same
it's
length,
buttoned down.
It's a button down.
It's
Right.
not as
right.
thick.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Hey,
I love a pullover. I think they look great. I don't really care about what the people wearing them think.
The pullover looks great. I just if someone says it kind of is weird while I swing, I'd be oh yeah, I get it.
Sure.
Again, they didn't hit a lot of home runs, and they were only wearing the
That's
83.
why.
Right. We got to look up the Sunday splits now.
It's fine.
See how many home runs they had. Then Vinnie always brings up the red pinstripes.
Yeah, those are my faves. The Belton Bill Melton ones.
They were in 2012.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love the sleeveless 2005. I think they look cooler without sleeves for some reason. It's the same jersey.
It's another big fan favorite is the vest one.
It feels like it's the White Sox version of the Mets and their black uniforms. This is very late 90s, early 2000s.
Yes. And the black uniforms look great.
They look
the Mets black
the
uniforms?
Mets, yeah.
That's your opinion.
Okay. All right. Hey, we do have a Mets question in here. Will Carlos Correa be a Met this season?
Jeez, I don't know.
You like this whole fiasco?
From afar.
If it was happening to a team we were covering, it would be a nightmare.
If it was happening in basketball, I'd be able to purely enjoy it without any of the built-in anxiety of how would I deal with this?
So you're just wondering,
this seems
the angle.
A mess. Calling Rick 3 times a day after that with this sounds awful. He'd be probably really irritated by call number 3.
Well, you guys probably don't envy Dan Hayes because he's not even covering one of those teams, but he's still calling about Correa and the medicals and all this stuff.
Never have I envied Dan Hayes.
yes, in the sense he's a human that experiences stress, but he's also like a baseball like labradoodle. He's very excited just to be around and like sniffing all the people, and just like he loves being in baseball and like getting these gossipy stories. Like this is his thing.
Dan, if you're watching, you need to change that to your Twitter bio. I love being around and sniffing all the people.
You could just make baseball labradoodle. That was pretty short.
That's pretty good.
And then final one, Vinnie didn't want to talk about this at all. He did not. He banned this as a topic. I think he's sick of talking about this topic. Who will be the White Sox starting second baseman in 2023?
I didn't ban it because we are going to have to talk about it 100 more times. But
So you
yeah.
wield
Just
like
joking.
no power in this
No,
situation.
none whatsoever. Yeah.
So like opening day or like
Yeah, we'll say opening
blind
day.
share of the plate appearances.
Who would be? I mean, obviously Liuri will be on the roster, so like,
Right.
Liuri will probably get some appearances at second
I was
base.
not going
but
to
like,
name Larry.
okay, all right.
You don't need to like further dive down like the qualifiers.
Who would be like the second baseman on the 26-man roster, capable of playing second base outside of Andrew Vaughn?
Who are the second basemen on the 26-man roster?
Who will be on opening
I'm
day?
stalling for time by just continuing to add like process.
Argue semantics.
You could pass.
I mean, I guess Romy at this point. Like, if we're talking about the course of the year, like I think he'd be the most likely guy at this point. I mean, one, just technically, like looking at people in the organization, but also like assuming that, pretty comfortably that they don't have a move on the level of Benintendi coming for the rest of the offseason. I think they could trade somebody who would be like the new starter or maybe a placeholder. But I wouldn't like pick that over the field, I guess, at this point. And so then if I'm just choosing from the field, I would say Romy seems like he has like the lead shot in it, but I'm a bit of a Lennon Sosa man myself. I think over the course of like 6 months, maybe he could kind of take over and have that more opportunity. But I think you could talk to scouts who lean one way or the other, and like both enough have a little bit of like flaws in their track record where you could see why either one wouldn't work out and thus it would give way to the other. But I guess, wow, I've really lit up the fan base by taking this path to say, hey, Romy Gonzalez, why not?
I mean, you gave a thorough answer. It seems like it could be anybody. I think Vinnie and I took the
He's
field
the one
still.
who's like working out with the hitting coaches in Miami right now,
Right.
and the one they bring up a lot. So it seems like it's giving him an edge. Not that they say like, oh, that lazy lay about Lennon Sosa playing Venezuelan Winter League all winter. If only he would do some work. Like, it's not like that, but it seems like he's the one that they're talking about more often.
Makes sense. We'll take. We got a super chat here, and then we'll take a break, and then
What's
answer.
a super chat?
So a
People
super chat. People pay money.
to get their comment front and center in front of our face, and we usually answer a question. And
This is like when I like start maybe 1 a.m. in a bar and start like paying extra to put my touch tune stuff.
Correct.
it's exactly that.
What's what's like the go-to touch tune song?
It depends on the mood.
Okay, I think that's anyone's answer, but like
Depends on whether he wants to annoy me or not.
to annoy Vinnie.
What have
then.
I played to annoy you?
Just in life, or
Well, sure.
yeah. Typically, that's a daily occurrence at the ballpark.
I
Usually,
mean-
the White Sox take care of that for you by playing something that annoys
The
me.
thing
but yeah.
like I would do that would really upset everyone at the bar is play like some like atonal like Wolf Parade song from like the mid 2000s, and it's like a lot of distortion, and everyone's like, "What is this?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, man, this really brings me back to driving home from my hospital job for an hour through traffic from Blue Island."
It's me playing Gaslight Anthem on my way home from Jewel in Marionette Park. So yeah. Okay. Cool. Baseball tossed at a super chat saying, why isn't Benintendi official yet? It's been 11 days.
He's not getting his physical taken until like the new year. Okay. So it's not like they've had a physical and they're like, "Oh my God." It's literally like he's traveling or doing whatever for the holidays, and they're doing it afterwards.
It's that time of
Still
year.
pending. Yeah.
It's that time of year where
It's
people are busy.
Well, and they're making sure you guys, your holiday plans aren't screwed up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Rick Hahn's just being really, what's it called?
We're
Cautious, I guess?
We're the priority.
Yeah,
here.
so you guys are the priority.
These 5 beat writers.
So yeah, it will be official
We were going
when
to get
it's
it on
official.
Correa, but Fegan was visiting his mom, so we didn't want to make any news.
I like there was one snippet at the end of the winter meetings where someone jokingly asked, "Are you going to sign Judge?" And then the recording cut off. So I don't
He
know what
said
Rick
no,
Hahn said.
by the way.
Okay. Oh, shockingly. He said no. We'll take a quick break
On
here.
the record. And let the record state they did not sign.
No, they did not.
Man of his word.
Yes. Still pending on Andrew Benintendi, but that doesn't mean you should start freaking out because usually it's just protocol for all these the Like, there's no minor league injury that
it's
we know
ruined
of with
forever that like everyone's going to be like, I mean, I bet like front offices across the league are going to be more hesitant to like confirm stuff. They'll be like, well, it's pending physical. Let's not do anything. But yeah, generally, like 99 times out of 100, the reason why this is such a titillating saga is because it's abnormal.
Well, and because now both teams have done it, or at least both teams are worried about it. Like, if it was just the Giants and then the Mets signed him, I don't think people would care that much. But now it's like the Mets are like, it's 55% chance that we'll get this deal done.
See, now the next time I ask Han about some minor league injury, and you'll be like, why are you asking me about this now? And I'd be like, 10 years from now, this will be at the center of the baseball world.
Right. If Colson Montgomery has any injury, you'll be the first person to ask.
This guy stumbling over a bag in A-ball.
We got to take a break and let you know about Greenridge Farm. They're a Chicago local meat and cheese company offering you a better all-natural option. They're the makers of deli meat, sausages, and their famous meat sticks. They're perfect for tailgating, happy hour, and school lunches. And these all-natural meat sticks are hardwood smoked for 8 hours. And with 16 grams of protein per stick, they make a perfect post-workout snack. Meat sticks come in chicken, black forest beef, and flavors like jalapeno cheddar and spicy chili. I see you guys on the.
So I was going to say to James, if you have a joke, just interject. That's what I do all the time.
With Whittingham Meats.
Oh, that's a good. It might be.
Yeah.
You're standing athwart the organization as a whole.
Oh no.
But what I was going to say is whenever you have a joke, just interrupt him. That's what I do every day.
Oh, okay.
And the one that just came up there, Sean, he's a big fan like yourself of, all the stats with all the acronyms and everything where you throw the Scrabble tiles out on the table and assign it to a baseball number of some fashion.
Don't show Vinnie a spray chart. He'll
so
puke.
we had you just said, I think you just came up with a new one there, protein per stick. I think we should go with the PPS, the protein per stick.
I like that.
Yeah.
We can figure that out. Yeah. Maybe we could divide weights by bat weights and stuff.
Protein per stick.
I would never interrupt you with it.
And then like PPS plus,
you've got to normalize it for the league wide. Yeah, of course.
If you haven't tried them yet, you don't know what you're missing out on. They're delicious because they're made from recipes generations in the making, and being all natural, they deliver a fresh and flavor alternative at snack time. You can find them in the refrigerated section at Costco, Sam's Club, or your local Chicagoland grocery store. And right now, when you order any 3 meat products at greenridgefarm.com and include a pack of meat stick in your cart, those meat sticks will be free simply by using code CHGO at checkout. Greenridge Farm, simply natural meat. And we also got to let you know about ComEd. They are serving people in their communities. The ComEd Energy Efficiency Program is committed to helping families and businesses in the communities we serve manage energy usage and lower energy bills now and into the future. ComEd offers a wide array of incentives on lighting and other efficiency upgrades to commercial, industrial, and public sector customers of all sizes across our territories, and customers can inquire about how to update lighting to energy and money-saving LED lights, learn more about network lighting to operate your lights through your mobile device, and track your facility's energy usage, and more. Incentives have recently increased for indoor-outdoor lighting and network lighting controls, making these projects even more cost-effective than ever before. So visit ComEd.com/poweringbiz. That's ComEd.com/poweringbiz. Now to start saving money and energy. And to start a project, contact us at 1-855-433-2700. And for more information, you can email businessee@comed.com. I don't mind when you make jokes during the ad read. It's just I don't feel like I could say anything else but the ad read. Like
I had no idea how early in we still were.
There's a little timer up there. You can check it out.
I'm not looking at that screen.
20 minutes? Is that too early?
He's very paranoid.
We'll go to what you recently talked about. It's the basis for this conversation, fixing the White Sox offense in 2023. Seems like a very fixable thing. Seems like a super easy job.
It does.
Yeah, they're just going to turn it around. That seems like
tape that you put on like a tub that's leaking water.
Flex tape.
Oh, flex tape.
Right there. That can solve anything.
Good call. We should just have some of that.
Flex tape?
Yeah, it's fun.
Why not?
Yeah. Like my favorite is when he takes the aerosol version of it. He's got the boat that he cut out and put a screen door in, and then just sprays the screen door and then goes on the lake.
I could just watch infomercials for like days.
Did you just undo the screen? Like it's no longer a screen door now, right?
No, it's airflow.
But the point being is that's how porous it was before. It was a screen door, and the thing just sealed it completely.
And the seal like flexes.
Are there less like ultimately pointless like journeys to proving this you could have taken?
No, it's the most pointless.
Cross Tillman are asking what you guys are drinking. James has the Bulls 312 beer, and then Vinnie has the
classic
312, the golden wheat or whatever. And then I got water. Very interesting. Your most recent piece, you talked to José Castro, the new hitting coach now for the Chicago White Sox, also assistant hitting coach Chris Johnson, and then you even mentioned Mike Tosar in the piece as well. How at least are these guys going about fixing the 2023 offense, or what is the plan, or what are some of the changes that they're trying to install?
Where to begin? I also thought I should just like be chugging the entire time we're talking about my work. So like something like Pedro Grifol has like said from like the top down to like a level where some of the hitting coaches talked about is like, well, Pedro wants to do this. Is like something he said like in the intro press conference is like, we're going to talk that analytical language, which I'm sure fired you up.
Protein per stick, guys.
But what he meant in that is in terms of every hitter should understand like what vertical rise means on a heater, or what an average, extension in a pitcher's delivery should mean. Like the example I think Chris Johnson gave is that if I tell you that this guy has 17 inches of run on his heater, you should know that an average heater has 16 inches of run, and thus you're looking at a ball that's going to have more rising action. You should anticipate that. I should be able to tell you that number, and thus you know what that means visually in the game, as opposed to just saying like, hey, this guy's got a hoppy fastball, kind of beware of it. But like to actually quantify it will know people what to prepare. Or to say, the average extension that the pitcher gets on a delivery as far as like how much he extends in the rubber is 6.3 feet. For example, Liam Hendricks gets 7 feet of delivery. That's why he throws 99, but looks like guys are swinging at like 108 because he really extends out. That he wants to be able to give like quantifiable information and thus have that known what that means. So that's something that they want to be able to be part of their game prep and then take that out. Whereas there's like a bit of a division from hitting coaches about that. Some guys will be like, I'm the one who's going to process the information, and I'll just tell it very simple to my hitters, and they're going to go from there. And there are some hitters who have come up like, I referenced an interview with like Luis Robert, like the start of last season, where he's like, I came up in Cuba, I got what the pitcher throws, fastball, slider, curveball, and how hard he throws, and I just adjust from there. That's what I'm familiar with. So there's definitely hitters, wouldn't want to just single out Luis, who will be an adjustment for, to be like, hey, process all this information. And maybe some guys will eventually say, like, this is not really the approach I want. But, like, the idea was that they wanted to be a lot more, plain spoken and saying, this is the data on this guy's pitches, and you have to prepare for it. Now, alongside that, something Pedro has emphasized a lot is game speed practice reps, which extends not just to hitting. They plan on doing more high intensity, like infield ground balls, of not just like doing token, like half-speed grounders like every day and not really drilling down on specifics. So for hitters, that talks about hitting off a machine that's simulating spin, that's simulating velocity, and less like tossing flips and just having guys get loose, or maybe just less, batting practice pitching and more just like hitting off the machine before games. So that when you see 95, it's not the first time you see 95 that night. When you see, a 2,800 RPM curveball, it's not the first time you've seen that night. That's kind of the emphasis they're putting. Like, let's give you as much detail and as much vision of what you're going to face, rather than just the approach of, hey, just get loose, just, get physically prepared to get comfortable with the rhythm of your swing, and then you'll see what the guy throws and you'll adjust. I think there's some hitters that already work that way. Certainly Chris Johnson's been working in AAA Charlotte for 2 seasons, so what he's saying is not going to be new to Jake Berger or Gavin Sheets, or even, because a lot of this team has gone on rehab stints, a lot of the major league guys, like Yasmani Grandal has worked with him a lot. He gave him a lot of credit when he had a big second half last year. He's certainly seen Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez before, because those guys have done rehab stints. So I don't think it's going to be necessarily a huge transition, but I think not everyone has been wired to work that way in the same way, and now it's going to be a very overt part of their approach. And I think it's definitely different, and given the way the White Sox performed last season, where they kind of looked like they were getting a feel of the pitcher during the middle of the game a lot, or they didn't seem like they had necessarily an offensive plan and were swinging out of the zone a lot, this seems like what you do to a team that played the way that they just played. I don't think they're, this offense doesn't have a leg to stand on to say, like, hey, we just adjust mid-game, we don't do it this way. Like, they look like a team that, like, took too long to find their footing in games a lot, so they're going to get all the information all at once, all before the game now.
Yeah, they ranked 20th in runs scored in the first 4 innings, so they just seemed like it was just so dry the first couple innings last year specifically.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main takeaway that I got from that, and I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more of that, especially when spring training starts, is that the White Sox wanted to do something different. They brought in Pedro Grifol basically as their big piece of change from what happened last year to moving forward this year. That you didn't see a roster overhaul like folks might have been calling for, or maybe some would expect given the circumstances of their disappointment last year. To get this guy, the new manager, and this staff, I think, is who they are placing most of the onus on for drastically turning around the results that this team had in 2022 into going into what they expect to be a team that competes for championship in 2023. And so this is going to be fascinating to follow along with, and we're already hearing, we haven't even turned the calendar over yet, and we're already hearing them explaining what is different. I'm interested to hear from the players once we get to Glendale to say, all right, what's different and is it working? Obviously, you might not know it starts working until they go to Houston at the end of March, but they are going to realize some obvious differences between what they've been through the last 2 years, specifically last year, and what they're getting with this new group of coaches. We're already hearing what the coach's plan is. Now let's see how it works with these individual guys.
And maybe they just get waxed by Houston, but the
first 4 games maybe, right, yeah.
They prove themselves better at things they struggled at the last 2 years, which is convincingly beating the Royals on a consistent basis.
Very true.
Since now they have the Royals guy at their hands.
Well, and I think it's such a great opponent to start off this season, though, too, because, I mean, you saw in the World Series, they just were able to shut down the Phillies' bats because they knew where to negate that power. So I do wonder if they're able to, bring those same scouting reports where Frank Menechino would have said, we're getting slidered to death. Will the White Sox get slidered to death in 2023 again? I really like the part where Chris Johnson brought up, they really want to hone in on the fastball, where you should be going up there and just be thinking about, if I really like that fastball away pitch, I'll be able to really block everything out and not really have that doubt about what's coming. I'll be able to really hone in on, my pitches. I really think that's going to be a huge boost for the Sox in 2023. Hopefully they'll have better pitch selection. We do have some stats here. Just first pitch selection, walk rate, just compared to 2021 and 2022. And what jumps out to me is that first pitch swing where they went from tied from 13th up to 7th in 2022. And we just saw the K rate completely plummet last year. So hopefully they're able to make some adjustments there.
I commented a little bit at the end of the article, but Castro is a guy coming from a successful organization, but he's also a new guy coming in. He's not trying to just slag everything that's been doing over the who he's taking over for. He's they've done some good things. There's time and place for that. And he's being even-handed as I would expect him to be. Whereas Chris Johnson came in from the start of the interview, we were 29th in ISO on fastballs, 93 miles an hour over last year. We gotta fix this. It's very much like someone who had been in the organization last season and been these are our issues, and they're kind of bothering me just to bring it up a little bit type of energy, which I think the fans would have appreciated if I looped a bunch of White Sox fans onto my phone call with a hitting coach.
Right.
Which is atypical from a reporter standpoint.
Well, and I know someone in the chat wants me to bring up Tom Fornelli. So if you had a podcast maybe with Tom Fornelli, you would be able to, bring those thoughts. But, do you miss Tom?
I will miss him for a long time. For last update, deer have overtaken his home in Lake Bluff. They're in control of most of the kitchen appliances. I think Tom is boarded up in his basement, but I fear there's not much longer of Tom Fornelli.
Are the deer making his daily bets that he puts out on Twitter
They will be providing the lines in the future and the over-under calls for him going forward. So that level of content will continue, but they've eaten everything out of his bird feeder, and now he'll be sleeping in his bed tonight, I assume.
How do you use a kitchen appliance with a hoof?
A toaster.
Things.
Yeah, a toaster seems easy. You just got to go down.
Sure.
So that's doable.
They've done a load of dishes recently.
At least they're keeping the place tidy.
Yeah.
Very nice deer. So let's take a break, and then we'll jump into maybe some of the players that might be able to take this new instruction further and be able to improve, build on some of the old stuff, and maybe Chris Johnson providing some familiarity will help some of these guys with a boost in 2023. If you want to watch the White Sox in 2023, the best way to be at the game is through Game Time. They're the hottest new ticketing site that makes it easier than ever to score the best deals on tickets to sports, concerts, and shows. If you ever dreamed of sitting in a seat you never thought you could, 50-yard line, courtside, behind home plate, floor seats at a concert, it's possible with the Game Time app. The biggest last-minute price drops can be found on the seats you never thought you could buy. You won't find a better deal this season on Blackhawks, Bulls, or Bears tickets. It's created by the fans for the fans, and they guarantee the lowest price. So if you love CHGO, then you'll love Game Time. The best way to support us is by buying your tickets to the link in the description. Join over 15 million people who have downloaded the Game Time app and score the best seats to all your favorite events. We also got to let you know about Shady Rays. I was driving today with our Shady Rays. Vinny, you probably were as well.
It was bright. It was bright outside.
We got to get James a pair. They never understood why sunglasses were so expensive this winter.
They're in your gift bag when you leave.
Along with another 6-pack of the Goose. Yeah. You don't have to break the bank with this quality. You don't have to break the bank for quality sunglasses this winter because our friends at Shady Rays have you covered. Shady Rays are premium polarized shades featuring world-class optical clarity, substantial durability, and styles catered to everyone and every lifestyle. They have a fantastic protection program as well. If you lose or break your shades on day one, they told us that they will send you a brand new pair, no questions asked, and they do stand behind their product. And they told our team that if anyone has a problem, they'll throw profit out the window and do what it takes to get it right. They offer free returns and exchange. You'll either love the shades or Shady Rays will pay you to ship them back. That's it. So Shady Rays is running their deepest deal of the season. Use code CHGO for 50% off 2 or more pairs at ShadyRays.com. You can buy one, get one free. You get 2 pairs for as low as $54. Redeem only at ShadyRays.com, where you can find their newest and best shades. We also got to let you know about FOCO. Lawrence took off the FOCO thing.
Sorry, yeah, it's yeah.
Now it's too hot?
Yeah, I got it warm.
Okay.
It's a quality
It worked.
product.
It worked.
It worked.
Warmed you up.
Chicago, you've already got the best coverage for your favorite teams, so get fitted in the best sports gear around. FOCO has you covered from Soldier Field to the living room. Soldier Field to the front room.
Thank you.
North or south side with hoodies, slippers, signs, bobbleheads, and everything in between. Get decked out like DeMar with apparel from the leaders in sports merch and collectibles. FOCO, F-O-C-O. If you're looking for the perfect gift for the football fan in your life, FOCO's got you covered with the hoodies to fight that Lake Michigan breeze. So check out FOCO.com, F-O-C-O.com, or click the link in the description below. For all non-presale items, use the promo code CHGO for 10% off. Again, for all non-presale items, use the promo code CHGO for 10% off at FOCO, F-O-C-O.com. Thank you, James, for sitting through that ad break. We got some players we want to. You have no choice.
Living room as a thing?
No. So this ad read was written originally and the line was from. What was it from?
Soldier Field
to the front room. Front room is a Chicago thing. You know, it's one of those things we say with our thick accent, like the Jewels. Anyway, it then changed to living room, and I'm like, what are they ashamed of? Are they ashamed of saying front room? You gotta stand up for your city and your ridiculous accent. Like
they all live in the suburbs.
So yeah.
They all live in Orland Park.
So what if it's not located in the front?
Well, but it's a
your
reference.
Rule?
It's a reference.
It's like the front office, front room.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's just kind of saying it's from Soldier Field to your house. Like,
right.
It's kind of like
I got that part.
Yeah. I think it's.
I was not befuddled by the end.
Yeah, I think it's any point in the house. I mean, it could be kitchen. I think.
Sure, but front room is a Chicago. Thing.
They were trying to. I think.
I liked that. I wanted it to stay in there. So we're putting it back.
Bringing it back.
We're taking back our city.
So let's talk about some of these players more specifically. I mean, Luis Robert, you mentioned his time in Charlotte before. We were going through our top storylines for 2022. I found that note, and one of them was, can Luis Robert win MVP? The answer was no in 2022. But even Chris Johnson.
He could have, but he didn't.
Could have, yeah, right. He
probably couldn't have given that he got
given
injured.
a number of at bats.
Got injured 3 times.
Yeah, right. If he was healthy and he hit the ball,
then
yeah. But even I think of when he went down in 2021 to Charlotte, he ended up coming back with a new stance and was a little bit more open. So what are some ways that maybe Luis Robert can improve? Is it just staying healthy, or what other parts of him as a hitter needs to improve to be that 3rd or 4th bat in the lineup?
I mean, he's always a guy because his approach is like so crazy aggressive that like you can't just say like, oh, I wish this guy was passive and turn his plate approach into like Jack Cust or Adam Dunn and he'd be just as effective. But he's always a guy who has like some level of, if he's able to shave down his outside the zone chasing, the level to which he swings and misses at sliders out of the zone, that there's room for improvement. I think he's shown that he can be like mondo aggressive, and he has the level of bat to ball ability and the raw strength that he can hit for average, even while having swing and miss rates that are more accustomed to like these big 30% strikeout rate sluggers. But if he was just healthy, I think he would have put up a 4 or 5 win season last year. Just his hitting ability was like that, just profound, even outside of like having more refinements in his approach. And he's a center fielder who, when healthy, plays above average center field. Even though I know he didn't do that last year, I can see the chat flaming me for his defensive metrics before not even looking. But yeah, I think any improvement in his approach, but above all, just like not swinging with a extremely bruised wrist, or not having COVID, or not having dizziness, that it becomes very easy for him to become extremely good. But any sort of approach breakthrough at all would be, he'd be a top 10 player in the league.
Right. I mean, they had such an emphasis on pitch selection, so hopefully he'll be able to fix that. Him and Tim swing the most at 0-0 counts at 8.7% of the time, at least the team. Leary comes in second.
Tim's probably the one I would put, like, Baseball Prospectus had like a really good breakdown of this, is that his outside the zone swing rate will look really high, but he actually has this like section that's off the edge of the plate that he's actually really good at hitting the ball hard from, that it's actually a good swing decision for him to swing off the edges and be as aggressive as he is. He's like, especially now that he's 29, I wouldn't say like, well, if he could just hone in the approach and start taking walks. He kind of is what he is, and what he is when he's healthy is like a guy who can hit north of 310, and it's really hard, especially now, given how batting average is cratered, to be a bad offensive player if you're hitting 310, that you don't really like, if you just had more walks and power. Like if you hit 310 with your approach, maybe stick with your approach.
Right. We saw him recently at Driveline. Like, is Tim Anderson trying to boost more power? Like, would we see 20 home runs from Tim Anderson in 2023? Like, could that be a goal that he could be setting out with Dansby getting as much money as he is in his free agency contract coming up?
Sure. Why not? I mean, he's hit 20 home runs before. It was obviously maybe a different ball that he hit 20 home runs with, but he's someone who's gotten really away from like pulling the ball at all. I maybe wouldn't advise like, hey, start pulling the ball if he's hitting for high average the way he usually has. But yeah, I'm definitely curious to see what he's going to say about this. I would estimate not a ton, but the results will probably show on the field to some degree. And I don't think he needs to hit 20 home runs to be like a really great offensive player and hit leadoff. But if he tapped into his full power, given just how quick his hands is, given how much he can turn on inside pitch, that'd be great. But also, like, after his first couple of years in the league, he really didn't get pitched that way anymore. He's hitting the opposite field so much as a response to how he's being attacked, and I think people will give him singles over like betting on him being able to turn on fastballs. So if that happens a bit more, but I wonder if the league has to adjust him a little bit too for him to become more of a power hitter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that the coaches should, just straight up avoid Tim Anderson and not even make eye contact with him, but it's a guy you don't really need to fix, as you alluded to, right? I mean, this is, they brought in this coaching staff and a new manager to make all this change to get these guys back to where they were supposed to be. Tim Anderson, why don't you just let him do his Tim Anderson thing? The idea being that Tim Anderson would be healthy over the course of an entire season, which he wasn't last year. But if he is, you would like to think that you've got one of the most consistent, constants at the top of the order that you'd find in baseball with what he's able to do when he's on. And, that's certainly not something that needs to be fixed. That's a strength of your team. They've now focusing on other guys throughout the lineup. I'm sure, Sean, you've got Yohan Moncada on your discussion list there, would seem to be a far more bigger priority than trying to do anything to what Tim has done, which is make himself an all-star, one of the best average hitters in the game.
Saving the best or juiciest for last, I guess. I guess the Tim, some people I guess would be concerned at the way he finished the year.
I thought you were going to do another Greenridge Farm ad.
Why?
It's best and juiciest. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I guess people would be worried, though, with Tim, just the way that he finished last season, just because through the first 36 games, he was hitting 365, 405, 527, and then finished at 250, 285, 288 with an OPS of 257, or 573, my bad. So, I mean, like, even though it was a hand injury, there wasn't a lot of nagging stuff, right?
A lot of it, at least coaches I talked to said, like, they didn't feel like he was fully back in terms of leg strength when he came back from the groin injury. They just, came back once he was cleared to play, and that his ability to kind of be in his legs and his swing was, clearly diminished up until the point he got hurt.
Okay, yeah, and then, he ended up leaving, and that May 25th was around the time that he left, where that sample starts. So
the groin injury seemed to be just as disastrous a blow to the season as it felt at the time when they carried him off.
That's true. I mean, that's a moment I think I forget. We talked about based off of Chuck's interview with Yasmani, where he said the injury on the 6th was the biggest blow. We didn't even bring up.
They had a lot of blows,
right? But we didn't bring up the groin injury.
Well, I think the point that Yasmani made in that interview was that was like they lost their guy, they lost their engine, they lost their heart and soul kind of thing. Tim could technically still be that even if he wasn't playing physically at 100%. So taking what he does off of the stat sheet out of the mix there is probably what he was referring to. But certainly when you've got a guy who's supposed to be your engine between the lines as well as outside of them, hampering that pretty significantly, that's going to be one of the many blows that they sustained last year.
Understood. Before we move away from Tim and Luis, when did you notice Luis Robert became Luis Robert Jr.? Because I just brought this up to Vinny.
I saw it in print like the other day, and I was like, oh, okay.
Like, yeah, I don't know.
I'm telling you, I think it was a prerequisite to owning a butterfly sanctuary.
All right. We'll have to look into Florida law.
We have to ask about the butterfly sanctuary.
I will be disappointed if it's not our first question to him.
It seems like a good icebreaker. Like, welcome back. How's the butterfly sanctuary?
Well, the only reason I wouldn't is because I'd be crushed if he was like, yeah, I got rid of it. Like, bought the house, cleaned it out,
put a cage in there.
Burned it on the first day.
Wow, that's gruesome.
Poor butterflies. You bring up Yasmani. I know there's been talks about him getting into his legs as well a little bit more recently, using the ground up, to get that power back. Outside, I mean, it seems like his plate selection's still there. Like, what does Yasmani need to do to turn things around in 2023? Is it just health and, have the lower half of a goaltender?
The lower half of a goaltender.
He's working with
Blackhawks.
Who's a hockey joke.
He's a big hockey guy now, James. We're gonna have to learn hockey talk to talk to Yaz.
That might be a tough road to hoe. Yeah, I would say physical diminishment is mainly his thing. Like, it didn't seem like an approach thing. I mean, he had 2 knee surgeries on both knees within the same calendar year, and just didn't seem like he was, the same the whole year round. It seemed like he was still rehabbing the right knee a lot of spring training, and was trying to get it into full strength pretty much all year, and then had the other stuff happen come along. The stuff he talked about with his back. I think he told us in season the thing he told Chuck about, his feeling like one side of his body shut down, due to the pinched nerves in his back. So, yeah, I think it's entirely physical. I mean, he's a 34-year-old catcher, and he's been through a lot with his legs, and, he tore his ACL early in his career as well. So, I don't think it's an approach thing. I think his approach is probably one of the best in baseball, but it's about having the same level of, pop that he's able to get from explosion of his legs. And, will it come back to full order? It seems like certainly he's working toward it, but it's certainly not a given. It's one of the reasons why I think, catching depth has been something that's animated the fan base, is wondering, like, well, what's our backup plan if he doesn't come back full strength and doesn't have the same, zip that he had second half of 2021. He's definitely seems like he's busting his ass on it, but also it's a really hard thing to get back after all he's been through physically and catching got to be 12 years in the majors at this point.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's why, like, I've said before on this show, like, I'm more confident that he'd be able to return to a semblance of the offensive self that he's been at his best. Mm-hmm. Far more curious about what he would be like behind the plate, and how the health issues have impacted what he's able to do as a catcher. Because I don't know whether the statistics reflect this, but anecdotally last year, defense behind the plate seemed to be a need of this team.
I mean, I think Yaz would tell you that he's a guy who focuses on framing over everything else. Like, to some degree, if you're really selling out to present pitches, it probably makes you more vulnerable to wild pitches and pass balls a bit more. I talked to Julio Mascara, the catching coordinator, at the end of the year, and they were basically getting Yaz back into the one knee stance to try to both take pressure off his body and also, get him set up where he's kind of already set up pretty low to frame pitches the way he wanted to. Earlier in his career, he was more traditional stance, just because he could frame really well that way, and that was where his experience was. And they tried to get him one knee a little bit in 2021. It didn't really take. His numbers went down, and once he started feeling better, he wanted to get out of it. But now they're looking as more of a permanent switch that, this will maintain you better, and if you get used to it, you'll be able to frame the way you want to out of it. So that might be a change we see defensively more out of it. It's not going to turn him into just a totally different dude catching wise. I don't think he's going to lead the league in least balls to the backstop ever, but maybe it's something that can make it work for him while still framing the way he wants to.
Right. Like every other metric, like his arm is pretty below average. His pop time is pretty below average, not shockingly. Even his exchange rate is pretty slow, pretty below average. So like framing is what he does best. It's just, as long as he can play 100 games and hit like the way he does, I mean, that's where his value truly comes from. And, it's, I think, really huge looking back at what he did load-wise before he signed that contract. He caught 272 games just in 2019 and 2018 alone, 135 in 18 and 137 in 19. So, like, just leg injuries are going to zap you of all that, and back injuries are going to zap you of all that. So if he's healthy, hopefully he'll be able to hit 20 home runs again, just like he did in 2021.
He was doing some contract year labor there.
Yeah, he was.
In Los Angeles, Milwaukee.
Not luckily for the White Sox. And then Yoan Moncada, he didn't have to put too much work in to get his contract. He just played, about 3 years with the organization and then got the contract.
Got himself an MVP vote is what he did.
Yeah,
yes, he did.
He finished 22nd in AL of MVP voting.
How do you feel now after, who was the Cup? Ryan Tepera? Was it Tepera who got an MVP vote?
That was an
accident?
accidental.
No, that was not Ryan Tepera.
Yeah, it was.
It was?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because they tried. I forget who they tried to.
Former White Sox great,
like,
Ryan Tepera.
Do you feel a little bit more vindicated now?
No, that was an accident.
He did it on purpose. He had reason to do it.
He and G.J. LeMahieu were like step for step, like on Fangraphs WAR, like around the 9th or 10th like bracket that year, and I was deciding between them, and I thought like
this is for 10th place.
This is for 10th place.
10th place.
I was sweating out 10th place. Neither of them were close. And I thought, no one's aware that Moncada had this big season. He did it for a rebuilding team. DJ LeMahieu plays the Yankees, if anything, and he was competing for the batting title all season. Like, if anything, he's probably going to be wildly overrated in this voting. And I'd vote for Moncada. I was like, this will probably get him closer to where he needs to be, given what his season was. I did not know it'd be the only vote for him if anyone on any ballot. And sure enough, LeMahieu finished like freaking 3rd or 4th. And I was the only person who didn't have him on the ballot. It was just a mess. And I got like angry emails from Yankee. I got like slammed by like someone who writes for NewJersey.com as a homer because, that's a big calling someone a homer by mad that they didn't root for your hometown player. That makes a lot of sense. And then someone was like, why didn't you vote for Tim Anderson? If you were a homer, he had a higher batting average than LeMahieu. I was like, you're almost getting it. I didn't vote for batting average.
So still a sore spot after all these years is what we're saying.
I don't blame you.
It would have been nicer if he had turned into a perennial MVP candidate after that rather than...
There's still time.
Who was more of an MVP candidate, 2022 Dylan Cease, who got one down ballot vote, or 2019 Yoan Moncada?
Probably Cease, it seems like.
Okay. That was a AP vote.
I mean, I think like every year the Cy Young is always a question of like, well, are they also the MVP? Like, what would we do with this? I don't think he was like this super transcendent. Well, one, he didn't win the Cy Young at all. But two, he wasn't like this, year where like Verlander won the Cy Young where he, was such a dominant pitcher that there was no compelling position performances that you would maybe put the Cy Young as a winner other than like if it's Ohtani. So, but yeah, Moncada was just like, this is a great season. He was better than the 22nd player in the AL that year, and that's where he wound up finishing because that was my vote. So,
can he do it again in 2023?
The easiest transition ever.
I mean, I don't know because like he hit 25 homers that year. It was like the 2019 baseball, and like everyone was rolling out of bed and hit 25. Not really, but like you get what I mean. And I don't know like if his approach, because it's clearly not like a pull hitting power hitter approach. It's very like spray the ball to all fields. I don't know if it's going to lend itself the way to hit like slug 550 the way he did that year. I think everyone would just be happy if he got back to like being an on-base machine, even though he kind of got like dragged for that a little. Like he was really just an on-base machine in 2021. I think obviously everyone would be really cool with that if he went back to that, and that seems more realistic with what they're talking about, what they want to be. They're not talking about like, let's get him back to the 2019. That was kind of the thread in the second half with talking Menechino about. I was like, let's just get him back to the 2019 guy. He was a little over aggressive, but like that'd be better than what we got right now. Pedro sounds more like he wants to get him to embrace his plate discipline, which can lead Yoan to be a little bit more passive than people want at times. But I think if it's a 360 plus OBP, you kind of sweat everything else.
Well, don't the White Sox need to be more passive in 2022 just in general, like every hitter?
My answer to that question is something that you alluded to earlier, which is it's really a case-by-case basis, right? I mean, you're not turning Tim Anderson into the guy who walks every other time he's up at the plate. You can get Yoán Moncada because he has that skill set already to rediscover that kind of thing. Certainly, Yasmani Grandal is capable of doing that, as we all know, when he's not injured.
Andrew Vaughn, I mean, he had a better walk rate in his rookie year.
Sure, but again, it's less about, the White Sox need to be the team where everybody does this, and it needs to be that guy needs to be the best version of himself, and it includes more of that. You know what I mean? And once you get to that point, if they can have the offensive team that they envisioned, then they'll be fine, and it'll do that thing that they wanted last year to be, where they don't have to be that good defensively because they've got the team doing the offense the way that they always wanted it to do. I think that includes Yoán Moncada being an on-base guy. It includes Grandal walking more than anybody in baseball. It includes Vaughn using some of those skills. But don't expect Luis Robert to suddenly just become the guy who's going to walk 100 times because it's some sort of team mandate. They need those aggressive guys to stay aggressive. They just need them to do it correctly, do it to the way that yields the results that they're supposed to get, that they're used to getting.
I don't think you need to transform any guy. Like, there was this one year Alexei Ramirez, like, all of a sudden walked like at 10% of the time, and just, like, watching his at-bats was really weird, and it wasn't that effective, and they kind of went back to normal after that. But, like, every hitter in the White Sox lineup's walk rate is, like, that needs to be like 2 or 3% higher. So maybe Tim would be the exception because he's always just been like a no walks at all guy. But like Vaughn just seems a lot more lower than it should be, given that, even just 2 to 3% lower than it should be, given that he's kind of a power patience profile and how well he knows his own. Like, Luis Robert could be 6 or 7 instead of 3 or 4. Like Eloy Jimenez could be in the same territory. And across the board, if everyone just got a little bit closer to average, I think that would be, very transformative, where your guys who spike it like Moncada and Grandal can kind of do their work and not be like the only guys drawing walks on the team.
Well, and I think you mentioned it, like Abreu was one of the guys who took to that approach in 2021, and now he's gone. So even that 6%, rating or whatever is probably below 6% now. He
also did really weird things to his game that I haven't totally figured out, like why it happened. Like why did the guy who has like elite raw power his entire career hit 15 home runs the year where he's like theoretically more locked into the zone than ever? Like his exit velocities were still on top, so it basically just
and 40
seems very
doubles.
Fluky. Yeah, but it was strange, man. It was a strange year.
It was so odd. I mean, like I think I noticed, and I don't know if it is the ball or not. Like, I mean, there was the recent story in Insider where they found 3 different balls and 3 different weights. But I'm not sure like how much the ball is actually affecting them, because like even in like April, like
I'm a big ball conspiracy theorist. Everyone, I mean, not affected, but I'm a big in terms of I think it affected the White Sox. I think their approach was very much geared towards like, we have all fields power. We don't need to focus, or we don't need to like prioritize it. Like, if the famous quote from the hitting coach that we got on Zoom, where he, will follow him to his grave, unfortunately, even though like it was in a very specific context, was basically saying after home run will hit 300 is that, and he was talking about Andrew Vaughn at the time, and he said, if he just focuses on making solid contact, he's got so much natural raw power that he'll leave the yard to any field. It's built on the presumption this team was full of hitters who could hit the ball out to the opposite field without really trying to. And thus they just had to focus on like clean contact. They didn't have to focus on like focusing on just this area where you can pull the ball and hit it for power to hit for power. The big thing we saw at the ball last year was that you could not effortlessly hit the ball out to the opposite field anymore. And so someone like Vaughn probably hit seemingly 15 to 20 drives to the warning track in right field that probably would have been home runs in 2020, but weren't anymore. And, Eloy even had one of those too in a big situation, I remember.
Abreu had a ton of them.
Abreu had an absolute ton of them. It was a team that just couldn't count on hitting the ball out at the opposite field a bit more, and so that if they actually wanted to think about power, or like at least maybe unleashing those kind of power swings early in the count, it had to be a bit more focused and not just saying like, well, we'll just hit for average and everyone will have 25 home runs kind of organically.
All right, so the final questions, I guess, will end on the new additions, and Andrew Benintendi How does he fix that? Or how does he add
He's
to
going
this
to bring the
offense?
power, baby.
Yeah,
Right?
I don't think that's happening.
Well,
Sean.
and I showed you one of the spray charts, and all of his power is to any line drive he was hitting. Like, there was a huge just red blob in left field. Like, I mean, that's where most of his power comes from or goes to, is the opposite field. So if the ball is going to be similar in 2023, like, is he going to hit 5 home runs again? Or, will it be
but
close to 10?
He's not here to hit home runs.
It would be nice if he hit at least like 10.
Cool,
He's
but
here to
that's
hit
not
for
what he's getting
average
paid for.
and get on base. But also, he's going from Kauffman, which is enormous, to the White Sox, which is, I think, sneakily by StatCast, either the number 1 or number 2 for left-handed power home run hitting in baseball. Like the other number, it's either they're 1 or 2 with Yankee Stadium. And so I think he's not going to hit 30 home runs now, but I think he probably would have been pretty happily in the 10 to 12 range if you were here, and it wouldn't be talking like he'd be talking about like he doesn't hit for a ton of power. We wouldn't be talking about him like this freak who only hits 5 home runs the way we talk him now. I think he can get a lot closer to average, which is what I think he functionally is in terms of the power department, in a very favorable setting as opposed to playing in like one of the best pitcher parks in baseball.
And then Mike Clevenger. What does he bring to that rotation?
No power.
No power.
I don't think he's going to hit any home runs.
He's not
going
to hit any. I mean, he can't even bat, like, legally, right?
I mean, they could put him in at shortstop, I guess, if they
There are
wanted to.
laws in place.
They could pitch run him at second base or third base, if they wanted to. Like, but yeah, I mean, what is he going to bring to the rotation as that 5th starter?
I don't know. I mean, the last time he was seen, he wasn't getting it out in the NLCS. He's a guy who's like, you're hoping him is based on the idea that he's healthy after like dealing with a knee issue or something like similar to Kopech, but not. He didn't need surgery.
Ugh, do I have to hear about cysts again?
No,
that was gross.
I don't know anything about cysts, but he said like he got a PRP injection in our introductory like press conference with him. So I wouldn't talk about like. He mostly said like he got the velocity back like in San Diego, especially middle of the year. I think there was a lot of focus on like, well, he just needs to be a full year out from TJ and back to full strength. The issue is like how much his knee is recovered, because that's what he's, we saw this play out with, Kopech, not to say their injuries are the same again, but like it was just about being able to drive off his right knee the way he needs to. So it's about whether an offseason can cure that and whether that gets him back to his old self, and whether, Ethan Katz, knowing him when he was an A-ball with the Angels all these years ago, means they have some sort of special connection or there's improvements he can make. But it's about whether he's healthy. It's a $12 million bet on getting him back to full strength and saying that he'll be Mike Clevenger again, which, as the offseason moved on, didn't seem like that pricey of a bet. This as a comparable started signing up, I think a $12 bet or $12 million bet.
It's different.
$12 bet for Mike Clevenger would be choice. $12 million, I think, is a lot better than like 1 year for Matthew Boyd, who like pitched 10 innings last year.
Rich Hill just signed for $8 million. So I mean, it's a little bit more money, but like the base salary is about the same.
Yeah, I mean, Rich Hill is a similar, not similar at all, style wise, but like I think he probably seen him be more effective more recently. But he's been the same thing where he's gets injuries over the course of the year, and I don't think he's pitched like 180 innings anytime recently. So it'd be the same sort of concern. But I think Clevenger probably offers more upside if he's only 32. If he's fully healthy, maybe he goes back to the guy who's thrown 200 innings, in the last 5 years.
Right. Any final questions?
Any final questions for James?
Yeah, I mean, you could probably ask him you have his phone number, so like you could probably ask him more questions.
It's true.
Like,
brag.
You'll see him again. You'll have more questions for him.
I'll ask you, James. Are you excited to get out to Camelback Ranch and hear Thin Lizzy's? The boys are back in town anytime soon.
No, that's like 2 months away. Why am I am I excited to go back to working every single day? No.
but it was more a question about Thin Lizzy.
Are you anti Thin Lizzy?
No, like in the right season, in the right environment.
They have a playlist at Camelback Ranch that they do not divert from at all.
Makes sense.
You hear the boys are back in town basically every day.
It's kind of fun. It's a fun thing to be a part of.
I'd probably do the same thing.
I'm not playing the boys are back in town during the off season, but because it only rings true when the boys are indeed back in town.
Well, we know what song you wouldn't put on Touch Tunes, and it's Boys Are Back in Town.
I would not put boys back in town.
I definitely would.
Yeah.
One, I don't want to do something that will galvanize the entire bar. I want something that's entirely for me while I'm in this public space, and then everyone can be mad at me.
I could do that too.
I think we all could.
Yeah.
I mean, I could put Tusk on.
Oof.
There you go. Do you like Tusk from Fleetwood Mac?
It's fine.
Okay, I'll take it. A lot of people are very vitriolic about it, so I'll take it's fine. All right, we'll end it there.
It was that you
I've
called
gone-
it one of the 5 greatest albums of all time.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that was.
So you play the whole album,
yeah.
not just like the song.
And I've made a different version where it's trimmed down a bit, so it's a little bit more succinct. It's called Tusk 2.
You've released a different.
I haven't
version
released
of
it. No, I haven't released it. I've
the
just been
famous album Tusk by
Yeah.
Fleetwood Mac.
Just putting it together.
He's basically made the Phantom edit of Tusk.
Is it on Apple Music?
It's Spotify. Also,
SoundCloud.
Yeah, SoundCloud. I've remixed it all too.
Yeah, right.
No, I mean you could pare it down. I think it's a good album if Lindsey Buckingham just didn't have too much control. I don't need to start talking about this. James probably wants to go home. That's James Fegan.
Do you slide like when the other singer died? Did you like kind of slyly put on Twitter? It was like, hey, a unique cut of this famous album out if you want to honor her memory.
She has a name, the other singer.
I don't remember it.
Christine McVie.
Christine McVie.
Yeah, I did. I don't know. What
I remember
it was, though.
DJ Carrasco's name from him being the long reliever of the White Sox in like 2009, but not Christine McVie. Sorry.
I don't blame you. That's fine. It's your job to know. I forget who you even said.
DJ
right
Carrasco
now.
does not come up in
Carrasco.
my day-to-day work at all.
It could. It just did. And that's James Fegan. You can follow him on Twitter at JR Fegan. He's the Athletics Chicago White Sox beat writer. And that is Vinnie Duber. He's our CHGO White Sox beat writer. You can follow him on Twitter at Vinnie Duber. And I'm Sean Anderson. You can follow me on Twitter at Sean_W_Anderson. We appreciate James filling in for Herb today. And we'll have Mike Rankin on the podcast from Future Sox tomorrow at 4 p.m. And then Chuck Garfine on Thursday. Don't know what day of the week it is. On Thursday.
He'll be here on Thursday. Yeah.
All right, there we go. On Thursday. So that's going to do it for the CHGO White Sox podcast. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and make sure you're hitting the like button on the way out. Thank you very much, and go Sox.